was shaving his eyebrows for $50 when he was growing up. Now Sean O'Malley's got gold all around his waist and his neck. This is literally out of a movie.
The Sugar Show is here. It has arrived August 19th, 2023. It's the moment that the UFC revolution has begun. The O'Malley revolution has begun.
Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
Sean O'Malley knocks out Aljamain Sterling. Round 2. That is what you call Sugar State Athletic Commission approved right there. Welcome to the new era. The Sugar Show is upon us. Breaking it down with me, as always, my co-host, the Santa Fe Bomber, the New Mexico native himself, the man who has been proclaiming that the Sugar Show would hold gold eventually. The day is here. AJ, this is straight out of a movie. What do you think, man?
Man, straight out of a movie, Derick. Dreams come true, periphins come true, bro. This was a wild fight, man. You said it's the Sugar Show. It was the KO show last night. If you're on Instagram, I was proclaiming it from the jump. This was a wild one, Derick, man. I'm telling you, when the mics were off screen, folks, I was letting Derick know. If you can see something wrong with my voice, it's because I was screaming like a madman when the fight was going on. It was a good time, brother. How'd you like it?
I mean, listen, man, this was entertainment at its finest. This was one of those fights where you knew going into it that anything could possibly happen. And after that very kind of, boring-ish first round, I say boring just because it was really measuring, right? Aljo finally gets a clinch at the very end, steals the round, and it's like, okay, are we going to see 5 rounds of this? Absolutely not. If Sean O'Malley has anything to do with it, if he catches you, he does it clean, and he did it straight out of a Conor McGregor 2.0 type situation, except it was switch stance. We were at orthodox instead of southpaw. Man, we got a lot to break down here today, but my quick question to you before we jump into everything here is that for the O'Malley people who have been super high on him since the Dana White Contender Series, now that he's champion, do we see an Aljamain Sterling-esque title run? Do we see a marathon title run, or do we see a quick burst and then you know how that story goes? What do you think?
I don't think Sean O'Malley is a flash in the pan, Derick. This dude has been coming up since day one and grinding and still steadily rising his entire career. Although, don't get me wrong, holding on to that belt in this kind of division when you got killers like Rob, Sanhagen, Chito, there's a lot of up-and-comers that are still, I say up-and-comers, but they're present in the rat race that's going on. Going to be a little challenging, man. I'm interested to see how it all unfolds. I'm giving Sean O'Malley 3 championship belt title matches, retention, however you want to call it. What about you, Derick? Do you think he can hold on to it for long?
Yeah, title defenses, if we will, right? But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see right here. It depends on the matchup. There is a guy that I think that can defeat him. And I think that it's just a matter of not getting caught in the middle. That man's name is Merab Dvalishvili. We will talk about that a little bit later. But folks, enough of the recap, because we're going to break it all down in depth. If you take a look down at the bottom of the screen, you notice on the right side, there we go, that way, AJ, I need to switch that to AJ right there, man. But my man is the winner. That's kind of the point right there. 5-0 clean sweep. AJ, this is now 4, 5, 6 times this year. I mean, what are we counting at this point?
Derick, that's a good question because I stopped counting. I haven't been worried about the undefeateds or the 5-0s. Folks, go check the tapes. Let us know in the comments if you know. It has to be 4, something like that. But either way, all that matters to me, folks. You're tuning in. We're winning you money, whether you're choosing my picks or Derick's picks. I might have gone 5-0, but on the other side of this camera, it was a 4-1. So still winning you money regardless each week in and out. That's what's most important. But it is something like 4 or 5. Let's get it straight.
But this is what I want to say here. Bloody Water Podcast consensus picks, all things aside, 4-0 clean sweep. If you rocked with our picks, you literally ran it up, man. I hope that you tailed. Drop a comment below on how much money that we made you, and if you did not tail our picks, well, now you know. Next week actually, you have your next opportunity. AJ, let's jump into a proper recap quickly, man. So looking at the money line, as we had just mentioned right here, perfect 5-0 for you, my man. We did have one drop, and the one drop was the props that we will talk about here in 1 second. So that is really quickly where I want to show you guys that money line aside, we give you a prop lock of the night every single week, right? That's going to be the new way that we're moving forward here. When we're looking at the prop, we cashed Chito Vera decision plus 100. You got to love it. Garry, though he had many opportunities, AJ, he just couldn't quite get it done. It was looking like the TKO was really what it was going to be more than the submission. But any revisionist history thoughts before we move on?
Man, Derick, I genuinely saw a potential for that submission, especially when Neil Magny's hurt. His legs hurt. He can barely walk. But again, I think the machismo of Garry just took a little bit over and he wanted that finish. Couldn't find it. This was a rough one for me, man. The entire fight, I was just thinking that was a rough pick. Sorry, folks, we did miss on that one for me. But as long as you took the Chito pick on the other side, you're just still making money.
That's it, folks. On my end, back-to-back prop locks we have hit on. So keep rolling with us. We're finding you the cash that you need to have here on the UFC main cards, man. And with that being said, listen, at this point, we're going to break down all of the fights. We're going to get into the spiel and all that. I have one request for you, and that's if you have the opportunity to tell a friend, you should absolutely take that. Smash the subscribe button. And in honor of my man AJ's 5-0 picks right there, why don't we give a plug to the Santa Fe Bomber channel? AJ, talk to the people.
Woo, there you go, folks. Santa Fe Bomber across all platforms, but make sure you're going and heading over to the YouTube show. I'm trying to get more videos out consistently, but go check out what's over there now, man. You get a little in-depth on my life and what I exactly like doing, and if you're part of that community too, you get to chirp in, give some knowledge over here as well, Derek. This is a community we're trying to build and help, and it's all for you folks, man. Go over there. Like I said, Santa Fe Bomber on YouTube. Go subscribe.
All right, with that being said, let's break down some fights. Let's get it.
Have you seen that replay, buddy? Your head was bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Time for some main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ. Second round knockout. Flawless victory, damn near. Did not get taken down. Sean O'Malley, he predicted all of this and he made it all come to fruition. This is why this is a special moment. AJ, would you agree?
Oh, 100%, Derek. This has been a rise from birth, basically, of the Sean O'Malley career. I just saw a Twitter post, man. This dude used to have $50. He was shaving his eyebrows for $50 when he was growing up. Now Sean O'Malley's got gold all around his waist and his neck. This is literally out of a movie.
Yeah, and when it comes down to just how high level this fighter is, I think he put it on full display. But we keep coming back to the same theme. Every fight, it feels like at this point, it's because people cannot put him on his butt and keep him there, right? Aljamain Sterling had an opportunity, and I thought that the biggest issue that we had here was literally the most likely path to victory for Sean O'Malley. Aljamain Sterling stays on the outside. He'll be able to do good work, pick him apart with calf kicks, all that stuff. If he gets close, gets a body lock, clinch, takedown, that's what we were hoping for. But AJ, he got caught in that middle ground. And I want to know how difficult moving forward against the highest level of opposition will it be to stay out of that middle ground and to actually close the distance? Because it seems like nobody can do it. What do you think?
It's going to be the biggest mountain I think that people are going to face against Sean O'Malley with the range he's at, bro. 5'11", 135. He's a tower of a man in that weight class, and as well knows how to use his striking and his timing to create more distance when he wants it, less distance when he doesn't. Bro, that is one of the magic things that Sean O'Malley presents. And if you overextend like Aljo did because you're trying to get to those hips, because that we all know that's your path, easiest path to victory, man, this is going to be one of those moments in a UFC fighter's life that he sees over and over again, continuously happening, always taking advantage of it. I mean, do you see anybody being able to actually get in and clear that middle ground and get to those hips? We saw Aljo almost do it twice, but Sean O'Malley, even in the second round, was able to still stack out and get out of the way. This was a good performance. What do you think, Derek?
I do see a guy, man, and like I mentioned earlier, Merab Dvalishvili, I think that is the guy that's going to be able to do it, because the thing that I noticed here is that Sean O'Malley, at his best, right, fights a very clean technical fight, very, very clean. But the dirtier the fight gets, which is what we saw out of Aljo in the last 10, 15 seconds of the first round, that's when things got interesting. When you're clinching them up and you're just throwing shots over your head, you're not really even looking. Merab can do that all day long, has a monster chin as well, as we have seen. The problem is, all of these guys present openings, and when you give an opening to Sean O'Malley, he capitalizes on the opening. But you cannot do that forever, AJ, right? Like, I'm not even trying to rain on the parade, but I'm just thinking from a logical perspective. Let's just take a very quick step back. For the Aljamain Sterling bettors, now that we're looking back at it, out of 10 times, how many times do you pick Aljamain Sterling? Was it the logical bet? Was it the correct bet to make, and then Sean O'Malley just overcame all circumstance, or were we all just out of our fucking minds?
No, Derek, I agree with you. We're all kind of on the logical page, man, because 8 out of 10 times I would choose Sean O'Malley. And just for a little clarity, folks, on when I sent it on the Discord, I said Sean O'Malley earlier. I would 8 out of 10 times I would choose Aljo Sterling to win this fight. And when I sent it on the Discord, I sent Aljo first, just because that's the smart bet going into this stylistically. Unfortunately for Sean O'Malley, bro, he has the style to make styles not work against him. But again, will that be the forever case? I don't think so. What about you?
Hey, that's a really good point. You have the style to mitigate all of the other styles working how they're supposed to against you, man. It's just a special character in Sean O'Malley, and we need to really quickly talk about what's next here. Does Aljamain Sterling, with 4 title defenses, the most title defenses in the bantamweight division, Deserve is a really weird word to use in the UFC, but do you think that he has the merits to demand, if possible, a immediate rematch against Sean O'Malley?
I think he does, Derek. I think he does have the merits and the hit list and all the accolades that go behind it, man. Like you said, one of the best to do it, definitely in at least this modern era. But I don't think he's going to get it, to be honest with you, Derek. I don't think Aljo is going to be clamoring for that title shot. Just before this, he was talking about moving up a weight class. I think he's going to do that. Let Merab or let somebody else take the shot. I don't know. Do you think he's going to be clamoring?
I mean, Aljamain Sterling, he's already said it. He's like, if things go my way, I want the rematch. Sean O'Malley, when presented with that, said, next question. We're not going to entertain that. I'm going to get a bag against Chito Vera, which is going to be interesting. We'll talk about that. Potentially want to box Gervonta Davis. And then that's when you got the other contenders, the Corey Sandhagens, Marabs, Umar Nurmagomedov, even though he probably shouldn't be in title contention quite yet. But the point is, man, it just seems like Aljamain Sterling, depending on if he can get the rematch or not, it's going to solidify a lot of different things. It is going to hold up the bantamweight division, which is not what you want to see. But at the end of the day, the Sugar Show is here. It has arrived. And I think, AJ, and this is the final take, I think that this is the moment, this is the beginning point. August 19th, 2023 is the moment that the UFC revolution has begun. The O'Malley revolution has begun. I think the UFC will be changed forever because that's the magnitude of star that I think Sean O'Malley is. Do you agree or have any takes on that?
Mark your calendars, folks, because Derek said it best, man. 8/19, the Sugar Show has finally taken over, and I actually think you're right, Derek. We're gonna be seeing a transition of the style of fighters that are gonna be coming up, especially in the future, man. You get a lot of these kids watching nowadays. You see that slick striker moving around. He's knocking people out. He has the hair. He has the talk. He has the chains. Gold belt around his waist. I think we're in for a new era. And as a striker myself, man, I love it seeing it going forward. But then, what again, man, circular keeps on going because wrestlers will come back and it's going to be a fun one. But at least now, the strikers are on top.
And let's not forget that Sean O'Malley, when he started training for mixed martial arts, he did not start with boxing or jiu-jitsu or wrestling. He started training MMA. That is what I think we're going to be seeing for the next generation, the post-Sean O'Malley generation. But we will talk about it when that time comes. Big win by Sean O'Malley and new bantamweight champion. All right, man. We need to take a step back right here and talk about a rightful champion, a legitimate contender to have like a pound for pound run at this point. Zhang Weili, man, she made it look easy against Amanda Lemos, right? And once again, we always say UFC is a master at narrative of storyline, of making Amanda Lemos seem like the boogeyman who's just going to knock Weili out. But this pretty much went right along with what we had mentioned. If she fights smart, Weili, that is, if she fights like the true mixed martial artist that she is, she should have no problem dominating this fight, and that's exactly what she did. AJ, did you have any thoughts on this fight in the very beginning rounds that were going to be swaying from what we had spoken about on the previous show?
Ooh, a little bit, Derek. Just with the way that Weili came out and kind of didn't put the gas on right away, kind of allowed Amanda Lemos to really start off on that front foot, man. And then once Weili came back and got the respect, there was a moment where Weili cracked Amanda Lemos, and you can see she instantly kind of started taking the back step now, and then it became the Weili show. For a moment there in the beginning of the fights, I was a little concerned, and I thought this was going to work out. I thought the speed was too much for Weili Zhang to handle. Turns out, man, she's an absolute killer. Were you surprised she wasn't able to get the finish? Because I got to give Amanda Lemos a lot of credit for not being finished in those crazy positions she was in. Nothing super dangerous, but there was a lot of moments with lesser fighters would have landed up in a dangerous situation if they were presented in that same one. What do you think?
Not to be the bearer of bad news, but I feel like Weili could have got the finish multiple times, and the referee is what stopped the finish from happening, right? Lemos, for many positions, was just getting rained down ground and pound, right? To the point where people were talking about, should Lemos just throw in the towel? Like, should you, at this point, bro, you're getting 50-43'd, like, you know, or 49-43, I guess I say, or something like that, like something bad. But here, okay, that's a point right there too, man. We'll talk about the scoring and all that. It was a domination win, but judge actually gave one round to Amanda Lemos. This was a clean sweep, wasn't it?
This was a clean sweep, but I wasn't upset when I saw the round three. I believe it was a round three score for Amanda Lemos, because that was her best round that she came back out in. And it was either, I think it was round three, round four. It seemed like Weili Zhang took that round off just to get a little bit back. And that was when Amanda Lemos came back, had her best round. But if you're having your best round when the other people take it off and then you come back and still get dominated in the last two or whatever it was, It's a rough sign. But I wasn't upset, but this was a clean sweep for sure.
I really think that there's no fighter in the strawweight division right now that poses any legitimate threat to dethroning Weili other than Tatiana Suarez. Tatiana Suarez is really the only one that I can see. I love me some Yan Xiaonan, and I think that she will be a very tough test, but I do think for the title reigns moving forward, if you cannot wrestle at an incredibly elite clip, it's going to be an uphill battle beating Weili. Anybody can get caught, as we just saw in the main event right there. But what's your bet right here, man? Weili, at this point, it's Ruby collecting time. Are we looking at the Valentina Shevchenko version of the strawweight division right now?
I think so, Derek. And I want to touch on the Tatiana Suarez point real quick because I'm a huge fan of Tatiana Suarez over here. Don't get me wrong. But I do think that's going to be one of the hardest fights because, one, Weili can wrestle not as good as Tatiana Suarez. I'd give that advantage to Suarez. But I think the striking and the power is going to be a little bit of a different feeling whenever they get in the cage right there because Tatiana Suarez hits hard. Is she the most technically sound striker? Not necessarily, but I mean, she has all the other X factors that go into that. So this is going to be a hell of a division to see that matchup go down in. But I do think Weili might edge that one out, Derek. I don't know.
I think that's going to be the toughest test. And if Weili does, once again, we have reached Valentina Shevchenko-esque status, right? Nobody truly has. Valentina had, 7 rubies? Almost collected the perfect octagon of rubies, I guess you could say. Either way, Weili, and still unanimous decision. You got to love to see it. All right, now moving on to a couple of the other bouts that we had here on the board. This one, AJ, had some heat behind it. Ian Garry, Neil Magny, they get into it at the press conference and all that fun stuff. And I'll say, when you got a veteran like Neil Magny, you can't count him out. But AJ, Ian Garry threw one kick in the very beginning of the fight, and I think that changed the entire outcome of the fight. Magny was basically a one-legged fighter, and Ian Garry picked him apart for 15 straight minutes. This is my question to you. Clearly, Ian Garry is very Conor McGregor-esque, the way that he can call his shot, he can talk all that crap, and he can still put you in a position to make you look silly. But without getting the finish, you embarrassed Neil Magny thoroughly from a combat sports perspective, but you didn't get the finish. And some people are saying that is the one X factor that is missing from that next Conor McGregor-esque progression. Do you agree?
It does mar the performance of Ian Garry going in this one, especially you have a guy hobbling around on one leg, but you still allow him to get some shots off on you. Get back, get a little bit back on you. It does give a little pause for hesitation in the Ian Garry situation, man. If this dude, like I said, I saw multiple moments when Ian Garry could have gone in for the finish, whether it's TKO, whether it's a ground and pound, get him down there, and then you submit him. However the case is, there was a possibility that could happen. But again, all credit to Neil Magny because this dude is an absolute savage for not getting finished in there. But I do think it at least seems like it makes Ian Garry not the top upper echelon. He's still building to that point. And his name's the Future, the nickname's the Future. So it seems like the Future still has some steps to be crawling up that ladder. How long do you think till we see Ian Garry really reach his full potential, Derek?
Well, I think it's good that you're taking somewhat of a slow-rolled approach, right? Because these are going to be the best prospects, right? The best contenders, the ones who have been battle-tested up to the point where they get to the top 7 and up to 1, right? I think that this was a good test. I think that this was in his head, right? He said, this was my opportunity to show you that I'm at that next level. I'm patient. I'm not just going to go finish hunting. And I think that he learned from that Song Kanong fight where he got caught when he was just opening up too much. He didn't want to give the opportunity to Magny, and he just thoroughly outclassed him. Made me a little bummed out when it was a takedown in the last 30 seconds of the fight and just kind of ended it that way. I wanted to see some big ground and pound. He did have a little submission attempt, but you're right. You have a man wobbling around like there, you got to get him out of there. That's what really just blows you through the roof, man. But maybe he doesn't want that. AJ, have we ever thought about that in the perspective of a fighter? Maybe they don't want that to be just completely catapulted to the top.
That's interesting because, no, I never have, man, especially in this art and especially with the egos fighters have, even amateur fighters like ourselves, Derek, still the ego is absolutely massive. So you would think he'd want to be skyrocketed to the top, but maybe he have that business savvy mentality where you think it's a marathon, not a race. And that might be the situation. I mean, if that's the case, no fault given at all, no fault oppressed, but do you think that's the case? Because it sounds weird to me to be in a, fighting in your underwear inside of a cage with millions of eyes around you saying you don't want the attention. It seems a little counterintuitive. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe that he doesn't, not that he doesn't want the intention, but I do think after just watching a bunch of like Ian Garry stuff that he's just a very intellectual fighter, and that even though he does come off sometimes as hard to like, you know what I mean? That bravado, that confidence is so apparent. But I do think that he's very calculated in where he's taken his career progressions. And listen, man, I think that this is the mark of a good businessman right here, in my opinion. So Ian Garry, another victory, top 10 ready. And at this point, literally, it has to be a top 10 guy. So we're making our progressions. We're getting there. Big win by the future, Ian Garry. And now on short notice, Mario Bautista gets Damon Blackshear, the monster. AJ, we said this before, or in the pre-show, I guess we should say, that Damon Blackshear in this matchup is incredibly dangerous, and we liked him in any other circumstance than the ones that were provided, right? 2 weight cuts within the span of 9 days, trying to get 2 wins within the span of 7 days against a monster like Mario Bautista, who, even though he overcame some adversity in the beginning, man, when the dog came out, when those moments of like, we're bringing the dog out, I just think that Blackshear was compromised and he did not have the reserves to be able to fight that fight. Do you agree? Do you think that under any other circumstance on a regular full camp, both fighters, Damon Blackshear could have won that fight? What do you think?
I do agree, Derick, especially with how we saw that first round really play out. If Damon Blackshear was able to fight that fight for the last 2 as well, there's a really good chance this ends up going the other way. But to that point, man, if this is a full camp, full everything, do we see both guys kind of just empty it out like we did, like literally go for it from the jump? They might play it a little bit smarter, but either way, man, this was a crazy one to see, because I feel like later on, 2-3 years down the road, we could see both of these guys fighting each other again for an even bigger, maybe not a title shot, maybe not something like that, but a top 5, top 10, anywhere in there. This could happen. So I'm happy they did it, but it sucks for Damon that he had to cut all that way, do that again, and still have a pretty, not lackluster performance, but uncharacteristic performance of Damon Blackshear, if you would.
Yeah, you dropped the ball technically, right? But given the circumstances, I think that the company gives him a pass because that's a company move, right? You did a favor. You saved a fight from getting moved off of a pay-per-view. We had already talked about how he had that very up and down start, and now look at where he's going. I don't think that this really affects him too much, but I do think that, yeah, you're right. Under a full camp, I don't think that first round would have been at such high pace, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, Blackshear is moving right now, but can he keep this up for rounds 2 and round 3? Mario Bautista was able to. Blackshear was not quite able to. Big win by Battleborn Mario Bautista. And to open us up, AJ, this was an interesting matchup, man. This one had a little heat on it. Chito Vera comes in short notice against Pedro Munhoz, the young Punisher. And we had already mentioned, hey, this is kind of Chito's fight to lose, right? Stylistically, we know Pedro Munhoz can just sit on the outside and just try to leg kick him, pick him apart and stuff like that. But I had a feeling, AJ, that style of fight is not going to be as favored as when Marlon Vera, as he builds over the course of 3 rounds, he started popping him with the jab, landing the heavy shots, right? Munhoz getting bloodied up and all that good stuff, while for a vast majority of the fight, Munhoz was putting up numbers volume-wise. What do you think about that strategy of I'll just tit for tat, little calf kick here, little calf kick here. I'm just racking up points, racking up volume, right? Where do you think like that comes into play when you have a fighter like Chito Vera, who's less volume initially, but bigger power? Like, does that tit for tat game work?
Oh, does that tit for tat game work? Yes, Derick. I think if the damage is also similar, if you're giving the pillow punches and you're just racking up numbers, but the face still looks good, there's no welts on the legs, nothing like that, it starts to get a little bit more differentiated. But let's say both people are bloody as can be, but one has more output, then that's where I think the Pedro Munhoz approach really starts to take effect. But if you look at Chito, man, it didn't really look like he was in much of a fight. That's the thing. He was, not bloody, but you look at Munhoz on the other side, and it looked like he was struggling. He was in a dog fight, but only one dog really actually ended up getting more of the damage done. And that's where this was an interesting one too, because again, no finish, but an incredible fight going forward. But you can't blame Chito or anyone for not getting the finish in this fight, because Pedro Munhoz is an absolute dog, and that's why he was able to stand in there with getting bullied up, getting beat up like that. But do you see a lot of value going forward in that same aspect of both guys, the Pedro Munhoz taking the numbers versus the Chito Vera actually getting the damage? Still a little slower output, more output than we've seen in the past. But how far do you think Chito can go with that kind of style?
Well, I'm not sure, man, because that was one of my things. I didn't see it 30-27 for Chito. I saw it 29-28. I thought he edged out the last 2 rounds, and I thought the second round was actually pretty close. So when I saw 30-27, I was like, oh, shit, did Munhoz get it? You know what I mean? But when it comes down to the stylistic approaches, Marlon Vera, we've seen, I'm the biggest Chito fan. The only problem is when you've become to kind of live and die by the finish, it makes getting these decision victories a little more tough, which is why this test was actually very impressive that he passed it, because Pedro Munhoz can be that tactician that just confuses you just enough to just outpoint you, the way that he just did to our man, El Guapo, Chris Gutierrez, right? Or even look at the Sean O'Malley fight. If you think about it, look at what Aljo was able to do against Sean O'Malley versus what Pedro Munhoz was able to do against Sean O'Malley in terms of that little tit-for-tat calf kick game. It was a very similar approach. So I'm not sure because what won it for Aljo in the Sterling fight, or what won it for Aljo in the O'Malley fight, was that clinch at the very end. It wasn't the tit-for-tat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's really all that I got on there. I don't know. I don't got too much else on that question because it's an interesting question. I think it's just how the evolution of judging, right? Because it always sways. Every couple months, we have a different point to hit on, right?
That's a great point, especially because even on this card, man, there was some wild judging cards. I don't know if we've ever seen, 42 to 24, 3-10-8 round score, and I forget who it was for. I'm pretty sure it was the Ian Machado Garry fight, man. But throughout all of them, not even just that fight, but throughout all of them, there was some interesting judgment calls made by the judges. And I do think you're right, Derick. However it plays out on that night or on that week or on that month, however the judging goes, that's what's going to be really the X factor for a lot of these fights. So if you're a decision fighter going for the tit for tat, the back and forth, pitter patter, it's going to be a rough haul, man. You got to be able to get those finishes in times of need because you can never leave it to those judges, man.
Yep, absolutely. And then really this is just the last point before we move on out of here. We had talked about it earlier. Chito Vera probably going to be one of those next up in line. I mean, when the champion literally says, Chito, what's up? You might definitely get that opportunity. The way that Marlon Vera just fought Pedro Munhoz, can he win against Sean O'Malley with that style?
Ooh, I don't think so, Derick. But the thing is, with the leg kicks that Marlon Vera is going to present again, but then that's what was really the downfall of once you get those leg kicks going, Sean O'Malley doesn't have the movement, and then you're able to put him in some more traps, able to close the octagon a little bit more off. That right there is what I think is the X factor for Chito going into this. But can he have the same performance he did against Pedro Munhoz and succeed against Sean O'Malley? I don't think so. I think Sean's a little too explosive and a little too rangy to be able to just not get into those dangerous situations. Do you see it the same or do you see something different?
From a striking perspective, I think the fight might look a lot like Corey Sandhagen versus Chito Vera without the wrestling. Like Chito just eating a bunch of shots, trying to gauge distance. He'll be able to eat them because he has the chin, but just walking into a bunch of shots and not returning the same volume. Classic kind of decision victory by O'Malley is kind of the way that I see it right now, unless Chito can get back to the old school days of the offensive wrestling and the jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, because that's the part where, once again, that's the big question mark. Either way, big win by Marlon Vera on short notice, too. You got to love it. All right, AJ, time to talk about some prelims. And today, how I kind of want to go about the prelims is instead of just saying, hey, let's break down every single fight that happened, I'd like to talk about some notable moments throughout the prelims that just kind of stood out. And the first one that we have to talk about, I think it'd be unfair not to talk about it, is the return of All-American Chris Weidman versus the fighting Hawaiian Spirit in Brad Tavares. Now, AJ did not look good. Calf kicks, knees, MCL probably blown out for Chris Weidman once again. But that's what you got to expect, right? You get your leg broken, and the guy that's going to fight you is going to just kick at your legs the entire fight. It only makes sense, right?
That's the first game plan. Literally, you see Chris Weidman's name come across that contract, and you sign it with a leg kick. Like that's what you do. And it was rough, man. Even seeing the video of Chris Weidman or Brad Tavares helping Chris Weidman out of the ring after that, you just know you don't want to cause serious injury to somebody like that. But at the same point, if you don't, he's going to do that to you. So you need to, man. And this is a rough one for Chris Weidman at the age he is too, man. And with the accolades he has, it's rough seeing one of the legends in the sport go in that kind, and not go out in that kind of fashion because he's not out. I don't think he's done. But just having that kind of performance in your first fight back is a rough one to see for the fans.
Well, when Dana White in the post-fight presser says, "Hey, Weidman, I think you should retire," I mean, you should probably call it quits at this point. You don't want to just follow the trajectory of the BJ Penns of the world, not to single him out, but fighters they just go on a pretty massive skid. Tony Ferguson, for an example, right? You don't really want to go that way. Former champion, doesn't really have anything else left to prove, but getting back into the octagon is always a good feeling, I'm imagining. AJ, there's not too often where I want to come on here and claim bragging rights and talk about I told you so and tape checks and things of that nature. But I do have to say that my prediction has finally come to fruition, man. I said the moment that Gregory Rodriguez uses his world championship level jiu-jitsu, he cannot be stopped. He destroyed Dennis Tillulin in very quick work, 1 minute and 43 seconds, actually, or maybe a little bit left, more than that. The point is, we're going to talk about the controversy that's attached to it. He takes you down. There's not much you can do. He's going to submit you or he's going to smash you with elbows or ground and pound. He used the elbows against Tillulin, but AJ, the first elbow that really rocked him, that was the back of the head, brother. We watched the replay, and I don't think that there's any excuse. My question to you is, do you think something should have been done about it?
No, Derek. No, I don't. And reason being is, in those moments, if let's say you're going to throw an elbow and the guy sees it and he closes his eyes and turns his head a little bit, were you aiming for the back of his head? No. Did he allow you to hit the back of his head? That's a fine line because nobody wants to allow somebody to hit the back of the head. So that's why I think right there, the intent behind it really has to be measured because, yeah, was it an effective move that changed the outcome of the fight? More than likely. It had like an 80% chance that had a lot to do with how quick the finish was. But at the same point, unless the guy is going 3 elbows to the back of the guy's head, and then we can really determine, like, hey, dog, the first one, all right, second one, wow, third one, yeah, you definitely did it on purpose. then I can see it. But no, I don't think we do anything else with this one. But I am glad, Derek, you finally pointed out D1, Gregory Rodriguez, folks. Derek doesn't want to say, go back and check the tapes because I'm going to say it. We've been calling for it for a long time, and it's so happy to see RoboCop come in and do it like this. Because he's back on the finishing side, man. We're not seeing him being tired anymore. We're seeing him get these finishes and just absolutely dog people. It's good, man. I love this.
That's the thing, is that the jiu-jitsu guy who starts getting some knockouts falls in love with the hands, and then that's where bad things happen. For an example, that last fight that he just got knocked out in, forgot the name of his opponent. I apologize. But look at the one before that, when he got knocked out by Jordan Williams, man, a welterweight, really, who was fighting up at 185 on Dana White Contender Series. It's just the overzealous nature of, I'm going to walk you down and smash you. Grab him, you know what I mean? Control him, put him in a crucifix, and smash him from there. I mean, it's just as good of a feeling. All right, AJ, another notable victory right here. Andre Petroski gets the big win over Gerald Mearschart in a split decision, bro. And here's the thing. I always say GM3 is a hard guy to count out, but we just saw it again, AJ. Andre Petroski has shown cardio, not issues, but just a lack of cardio on the tail end of the fight before. It showed again. He squeaked out the victory and then calls out Bo Nickel again after. Do you think, from that perspective of you're that dead tired over 15 minutes, that he'd even be able to beat Bo Nickel in a grappling contest?
Not even close, Derek. The maybe in the first round, if Bo is having an off night, he has an injury going somewhere else. But we've seen it since day one of Andre Petroski, man. Even when he was in the Ultimate Fighter, his cardio was insufficient. He really dumped his gas tank in the beginning minutes of the fight and really struggled to catch back up to himself. And even in this fight, like you said, Derek, really started to tailor off in the end. I don't think it ends up well for him. I'm wondering what smoke is behind that Bo Nickel call out, because you're calling out one of the top dogs in the in the organization that's going, or I should say, going to be one of the top dogs in the organization. Very close to being there already. Is there any smoke that you know of, or is this just somebody seeing somebody else's glory and wanting a little bit of it?
The only thing that I've seen is Petroski is a little upset that everyone is saying nobody wants to fight Bo Nickel. And he's like, I want to fight Bo Nickel. I think it's the same thing with Chimaev, right? Where you had, who was it? It was Neil Magny. And yeah, now we don't want to see that fight happen no more. But he was like, bro, nobody wants to fight Chimaev. I'll fight him right now. Like, what's up? Give me the contract. But, and then when everyone's saying nobody wants to fight him, you just feel a little disrespected because, you're throwing your name in the hat. But listen, big win by Andre Petroski. Would love to see a Bo Nickel fight one day, but it'll be interesting to see how that goes too. And AJ, last couple ones. Let's talk about our sleepers really quickly. Andrea Lee versus Natalia Silva. Natalia Silva just styled on Andrea Lee for 15 minutes. A little, how would you say? a little left to be desired for Andrea Lee, man. It just looked like she never made the adjustments that she needed to like have a chance to win the fight. And Natalia Silva just cruised to another victory, a budding star, who's coming up right now. What'd you make of it?
Man, what you said about Andrea Lee, a little left to be desired, is almost an understatement because that's been her last like 3 years, man. KGB Lee was a killer when she's really started to enter into the UFC. And now that she's facing absolute killers like Natalia Silva and the rest, she has really started to falter in the skill set level. And what can you say about Natalia Silva? But like you said, Derick, styled on her, made it look not easy, but made it look clean and made it look good. This is a good fight for Natalia Silva to have on her record as she's climbing that rope.
Well, we'll tell you, if there's somebody that made their fight look easy, it was definitely Karine Silva against Marina Moroz. I called it the sleeper for a reason. Karine Silva is a finisher. And AJ, I'm going to speak on this for a second, but with 1 second left, Marina Moroz submits to the guillotine. She taps, right? And I'll tell you, she even put a post immediately after, very sad, talking about the loss. That is the one feeling that will eat at you, even in the practice room, of there was 2 seconds left, 3 seconds left, 1 second left, and I quit. I gave up. I tapped. I literally used my hand and I said, no mas, no more, right? And though you're choking and you would like to breathe, right? Ideally, you're not going to tap for no reason. That is one spot that is almost like, for me, in my own performance on the jiu-jitsu mats, it's unexcusable, unforgivable. You just have to say, I'm a lesser man today. You know what I mean? Like, you just have to come to terms with it. Do you think that there's any greater pain that you can feel within the octagon that is not physical pain right there, other than the fact of knowing that with 1 second left, you gave up? What do you think?
No, that's the biggest heartbreak in the UFC game, Derick. You get knocked out, hey, I got caught. You get styled on, hey, you was a better man. You quit, I quit. Fuck, dude, that hurts. That's the one of the rough ones right there where you're like, oh, I tapped out with 1 second left. I couldn't last one more second. It was completely impossible for me. Those are one of the ones that's most devastating. I'm interested to see how Marina Moroz comes back from that mental break, man, because it's happened to all of us. It breaks all of us. It's how it goes. You're devastated when it does happen. So I'm interested to see where she rockets after this.
That's it right there, man. I can just attest to how devastating of a feeling that is, man, because it's rough. It's rough to go home and look at yourself in the mirror and be like, man, really? I thought I was good. I thought I was hot stuff, but apparently not. Marina Moroz is a fantastic fighter, and she will be back, of course. But Karine Silva, once again, just like Natalia Silva, budding star right here, man. And you need to watch out. They're sleepers for a reason, right, AJ?
Exactly, folks. We've been telling you the stars of tomorrow. We're fighting today, and we're covering them for you for exactly that. And if you watch these two fights in the beginning, you were very, very happy with your picks.
100%. With that being said, last two fights we did not talk about because, listen, I told you before I wasn't too interested in the Ultimate Fighter. Brad Katona wins what was fight of the night against Cody Gibson. It was actually an incredibly entertaining scrap right there. And Kurt Holobaugh chokes out Austin Thud Hubbard. Triangle choke. Slick armbar to triangle transition. I mean, if this was a jiu-jitsu show, we'd just be breaking that down for like 30 minutes. But super slick triangle for Kurt Holobaugh, sorry. But those are your winners. AJ, any thoughts, or are you ready to move on to a ranking review?
Hey, man, good fights on both of them. Can't dig too much into it. But again, once we see these guys get up into the upper or the actual echelons of the fight, because remember, this is the Ultimate Fighter finale, the tournament finale. But once you see them fight some real deal, like hardcore, solid UFC fighters, then we can really start seeing where the pads are going to be hitting.
That's right. All right, fair enough. Time for the rankings review, baby. Let's jump straight into it. And you know who we need to talk about here today. It's not going to be what you think, AJ. It's not going to be the strawweight division that we've covered extensively that is very stagnant right now. It's not going to be the bantamweight division, who we pretty much already talked about a rankings review more or less earlier in the show. Instead, I want to talk about literally the only other ranked fighters that in this division that we haven't talked about, the welterweight division. AJ, it's clear. We need to talk about it, right? And we need to figure out what's next because Leon Edwards is the champion, and we have a very just interesting, perplexing situation. So when I bring up the rankings review, I want you to see first and foremost the UFC rankings, which is on the far left side of your screen. And if you look at the UFC rankings, you're going to notice Ian Machado Garry was 13, of course, Magny 11. So we're looking at that victory that propels him at least to 11 on the UFC's board. I had Ian Garry at 14. AJ, you had him at 15. So with that being said, if he moves up to the top 10, do we claim him to be a guy who can beat this echelon of killers, or are we saying, no, you are firmly kind of in this 7 to 10 range? These are the guys that we would like him to fight next. What do you think?
I'm in the camp of 7 to 10 range, Derick, and I say that because I also think Ian Garry is in the camp of being in the 7 to 10 range. The fact that he called out Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, I want to be the best striker in the UFC, all of that. Well, I feel like that title has been taken from Stephen Wonderboy Thompson for at least a couple years now, with him kind of tailing off on the victories and really losing a lot of steam to T Wood. But that's where I think the business aspect or the business mind comes into Ian Machado Garry, because if you stick to that lower top 10 right there, you have a lot more luck to really gain more star power and take out these old veterans. Do you see it the same, or is this dude riding to the top? What do you think?
No, man, I definitely think that Stephen Thompson call out was so strategic. And like I said before, business minded, right? It's like, all right, who can I beat who will look the best on paper, has the best number next to his name, but I know when it comes down to mixed martial arts, I will be able to outclass. I don't know if that's actually the case, AJ. Like, I don't know if he just completely, thoroughly just styles on Wonderboy Thompson, especially if this is mainly striking. However, with Stephen Thompson saying, hey, respectfully, I decline. I do not want that fight. That's not going to happen anyways. So we need to talk about reality. Who can this guy fight next? And he was supposed to fight Jeff Neal, right? Let's not forget. He was supposed to fight number 8. Instead, had to opt for number 11. So do we see a Vicente Luque, a Sean Brady, which could be a very interesting fight right there? I would actually really like to see Sean Brady versus Ian Garry and just see how that plays out. Because, AJ, we talked about it, right? When you start introducing them to the pure grapplers, that's when things really get fascinating. So what do you think about that one? Is that a fair place to go? Sean Brady, Ian Garry next?
That's not only a fair place to go, Derick, a hell of a fight for both of these guys, man. Anyone in that, I really like the Jeff Neal. Was Jeff Neal? Yeah, the Jeff Neal fight. That's a good one. That's a winnable fight, I think, for Ian Garry. But you give him against a Sean Brady or even a Shavkat Rakhmonov, I think we're starting to see some real opposition against that cage going forward. Those two, I think those are very hard fights to win. I would love to see Sean Brady or Shavkat for sure.
I don't think Shavkat should even be thinking about anybody who's ranked anything lower than like 4. I don't think he should even concern himself with it. Like, he's looking up. Everyone's looking at him. He's looking up. He should not be looking back. So with that being said, Ian Garry is definitely in a sweet spot right now. I think if he continues to win in impressive fashion, 2 to 3 more wins before a potential title opportunity, depending on who's holding the belt, because Leon is supposed to fight Colby next. Let's just say Leon wins, right, and he defends the belt. Usman is still in play, right? Who's Usman going to fight? Shemaev? We're going to see this guy fight ever again? Is he just going to stay at 185? What are we doing? Lots of questions. Any other questions for you, or are we all set on the rankings review?
I like this one, Derick, because it's a very there's a lot of room to be moved in the 170-pound division, man. So this is interesting. I'm excited to see Leon really get back to work and where the cards fold after that. Ian Garry, his nickname's the future, and he will be one of the top 5 in the future coming forward.
All right, fair enough. All right, folks, we have reached the conclusion of this show, as always. And if you made it this far, once again, we appreciate you. We couldn't do it without you, and we will ask, just take a moment, remember where you found us out. Did you find us on Twitter? Were you just scrolling through YouTube? Did somebody tell you about it? Whatever the case may be, try to do the same. Tell a friend to tell a friend. This is your favorite fighter's favorite fight show, after all, and we have a couple of different outlets that I would like to speak about shortly before we conclude. AJ, we talked about it a touch earlier, but if you look at the link in the very middle of the screen, you will see AJ's YouTube, youtube.com/Santa Fe Bomber. AJ, what can the people expect from you when they go and tune in?
Folks, what you can expect is a little dive into my life over here. Whether you like gaming, whether you like art, or you're just a die-hard, hardcore fight fan like me and you want to watch some breakdowns on the live stream, make sure you're pressing the subscribe button. Make sure you're clicking the alerts so you know when I go live and you know when the latest videos are posted. I got one coming up for you this week. And like I said, we're trying to build the community over there. That way, we can have another outlet to draw more eyes to your favorite fighter's favorite fight show and win you all some more money each and every single weekend. That's the goal over here. But again, over on the Santa Fe Bomber channel, you can find more of the same.
That's right. And folks, I am now bringing out right now, slowly but surely, we're doing a slow roll on it, a supplemental tool to the Bloody Water podcast. So as AJ just mentioned, right, if you want to like tune in and tap into his process and why he picks who he picks and how all of that looks like, you go to the YouTube channel, right? That's the one-stop shop. You find everything there. If you're interested in some of my process and the fighters that I like and a little bit of a inside look at where I see value on the cards that aren't going to be laid out for you on the show, well, I'm doing a little article Substack type situation will be converted to a newsletter. The point is it's going to be in written form, and that way every week you're going to be able to get a little sneak peek before the actual plays that we give you. Because AJ, at the end of the day, right, we give them the money line picks, every single one of the main card, and now we're giving them one prop lock. However, the times that I say, ooh, this prelim fight, I really like that over 2.5 rounds, or no, man, listen, I'm seeing upset city right here on the first fight of the night, we definitely need to look into that. That stuff right there they cannot get. So that's what we're providing, and AJ, they should be expecting some of that for you as well on the YouTube channel, correct?
100%, Derick, and I'm glad you touched on that point, because yes, so in this hour long, folks, that you just watched, we're not able to give you all the insight that we want, and that's why it's the best thing to go to those channels, go to the article Derick's talking about, and see really what we're thinking and dive in on that mentality, because that's the mentality that's been causing 5-0s for a couple weeks now, folks. The proof's in the pudding. Derick's also had some undefeateds on his record as well, so go and check them out, man. Make sure you're getting all the stats in everywhere you can, whether it's on the print, whether it's another video, however it is. Make sure you're joining the community and sharing it with your friends, because that's the only way we all grow together. Raising tides floats all ships, or whatever the saying is. But shit it one more time, but I'm gonna try it again next week, because we'll be back again giving you money one more time.
That's it. And then just a friendly reminder for where we're at on the year in terms of overall percentages. Folks, we're not a 30%, 40%, 50% type program here. My man AJ, like I said before, in the lead, rocking a 60.69% accuracy on the year of 2023. That means 60% of the time, coming on 61% of the time, my man is correct when he is picking his fights. For me, I'm a little bit behind, 58.2% right here. The point is, at best, we're hitting at a 50%, or at worst, we're hitting at a 50% clip, really 58% clip. The point is, nothing but up from here. By the end of the year, 69 to 70%. That is the goal. AJ, take us out of here, man.
Woo, folks, like Derick just said, 69% is the goal, and we're trying to get there, steadily growing each week. It wouldn't be here for you, or it wouldn't be without you folks that we're grinding this hard, winning you money each week and each day. Back when, like I said, go check out the YouTube show, go see what we're doing inside our brains, inside the back screen, so you can actually see the in-depth coverage of it all. Join the community. That way you can also put in a little bit of your spice into these situations. Make sure you're subscribed, hit those alert buttons so you know when everything goes live, and we'll see you again next week. We got heat on the show coming up for you folks.
That's right, folks. Catch you next week. UFC Singapore, we have Max Holloway versus the Korean Zombie. It's going to be a fun one. That is it for us, folks, and until next time, peace.